Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Microsoft Reactor session. Thank you so much for making our time to be here with us. I'm Jafflet, and as always, it's beautiful and really amazing to be on this live streams with you all. A couple of things for us to take note of while on this live stream is the Microsoft Code of Conduct. While on this live stream, please, we want you all to be aware of others, be friendly and patient, be welcoming and respectful. We want you all to ask your questions, so please be sure to use the chat section to ask your questions. Most importantly, we want you all to be understanding of the differences of each other, and while sharing your comments, please be kind and considerate to others. This is going to be an amazing session. For those of you who are not aware, this is another episode of Developer Relations for Students. It's been going on for around some weeks now, and this is currently the fifth session. The goal of this series was to help students and those who are starting on their career in technology to learn about how they can go on to be successful. In this series, we also plan to help student ambassadors to learn how they can grow themselves, utilize the opportunity they have to part of Microsoft ecosystem. But most importantly, once they have graduated from the program, they go on to be successful. For those of you who would love to join the Microsoft Learn Student Ambassadors program, or you know someone who would be a great fit for the Microsoft Learn Student Ambassadors program, please be sure to share this link with them. Student ambassadors, aside opportunities to learn about technology like this, also get the opportunity to connect with Microsoft full-time employees, Microsoft most valuable professionals, and other industry experts who can help them develop their skills. And most importantly, they have access to tools such as Azure for students subscriptions that they can use to develop themselves. This is the sixth session in this series. We have had the opportunity of learning a whole lot right from the beginning. We started off with how student ambassadors can grow an amazing profile for themselves, how they can become great storytellers, how they can make impact, and how they can go on to utilize their storytelling skills when handling non-technical sessions. Community is an important part of the Microsoft Learn Student Ambassadors program, and so the fifth session in the series helped student ambassadors to learn how they can build strong and inclusive communities. And in this session today, we want to show you all how you can create an amazing online presence for yourself and build a great portfolio. As always in this series, most times I try not to speak alone. And today I have an amazing guest who is a very good friend of mine. And both of us will be speaking together about how you all can build your online presence and a great portfolio for yourself. I'll do her introduction and then I'll head over to talk a little bit about myself. Her name is Julia. Julia is a cloud advocate based in Kenya, and as a cloud advocate, she has the opportunity of empowering developers to learn and grow through technology while leveraging modern developer tools and cloud services. Interestingly, I and Julia were both Microsoft Learn Student Ambassadors before we joined Microsoft in May last year. But I won't want Julia to speak alone, so I'll be joining her in this specific session. I'm Jafflet, for those of you who are not aware, and I am a cloud advocate, basically focused on Microsoft Power Platform, Microsoft 365, data, and artificial intelligence. I'm based off Nigeria, so if you would love to learn more about things related to all of these amazing tools that Microsoft has, you can please reach out to myself and Julia. I'll be sure to respond to you all. For me, I believe that you all, when given access to the right tools and the right opportunities, can build mind-blowing solutions. So at this point, I'm going to bring Julia up, and then we could talk a little bit about this entire session. Hi, Julia.
Hey, Jefflet, how are you?
I'm very fine. How does it make you feel being on this live stream?
Oh man, I'm so happy, and something that really makes me happy is when you were doing the intro and you said that Julia is actually one of my good friends, and I was like, yeah, that's actually one other thing you get from the ambassador program. It's not just always about work. I mean, you make real world friends. So I'm really excited to be on this show. It's session 6 out of 6. So I'm really excited to just build on top of what has been shared before from previous speakers. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully, this will be worthwhile, for our listeners today.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure it would. It has been amazing for student ambassadors who have been joining on these sessions, and pretty sure
Yeah.
it would also be for them too. So, just before we dive in, I really wanted us to talk a little bit about our progress, right, from the Microsoft Student Ambassadors Program down to this point where we now work at Microsoft. For you, let's start off with you. For you, how has the journey been like? What was it like while you were Microsoft Student Ambassador? Did you ever think that you were going to one day work at Microsoft?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And honestly speaking, when I was an ambassador, I didn't really think it was possible because I always thought Microsoft is up here and I'm just down here. So I'll be honest with you, that's what I felt just when I was joining the program. And funny enough, I don't know if you remember this, but when we were both joining the program, it wasn't even called the Microsoft Learn for Educators, Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador Program. It was called the MSP program, the Microsoft Student Partners. So I've also really seen that growth in the program and I really appreciate it. So back to your question in terms of my experience throughout the program into joining Microsoft, there are a few things that I always like to mention whenever I'm just sharing my experience. And one is that when I was joining the ambassador program, I didn't really join it because I thought I was really skilled or I thought I was very good that I needed to join this program, but rather I joined it for the opposite reason. I joined it because I was looking for a platform to learn. I was looking for an opportunity to grow both as a technologist and again as an individual. And so that's why I submitted an application. Luckily, I got in 2019. And I can say the journey has been amazing. So, just to highlight a few milestones that I always feel it's sort of someone's story. Once you're joining the ambassador program, these are stories you'll always tell. Number one was that, as I've said, I was looking for that opportunity to grow. So with the ambassador program, it gave me the exposure to tech. It gives me the exposure to what is going on in the tech world, as well as opportunities for me as a student back then. So as a student, remember, you may choose to limit yourself to everything that's happening in class, but again, there's so much that is going on out there that you also need to have an understanding of. So I kind of saw this as a great opportunity to kind of introduced me to what the world had to offer when it came to tech. And then number two, after learning what's going on in tech, do you actually take the time to learn, to get skilled? So that was the second thing that the ambassador program came in really handy, that I got access to a lot of resources, and I'm talking about free resources that you would otherwise spend a lot of money just to access. For example, I don't know if everyone on the call today knows that as a student ambassador, you actually get up to 150 USD worth of Azure credits every month just to build projects on the cloud for free. So I, for one, enjoyed that benefit, and I remember using it even for my final year project. So it was really cool. So apart from being introduced to tech, I saw the opportunity to get access to resources and actually learn. And then one final thing I can mention is that for me, I really get motivated to learn only if I'll get to teach others. So I always tell myself that I learn with the intention to teach. And so the ambassador program again just fills that void in that it gives you a chance to build and nurture tech communities where you can learn something today and literally be sharing the same knowledge in a few weeks' time. So, yeah, I think that's how the journey throughout the ambassador program was. And then after graduating, luckily enough, there was an open role, and to my surprise, the role was on advocacy. At first, I didn't even know what it was all about. But after reading the job description, the thing that surprised me the most was that everything that I did as an ambassador is what they were looking for. So throughout my interviewing journey, I was just talking about the things that we worked on as ambassadors. And yeah, I think here I am today, and I think it was all worth it. So that's for me. Jaflet, I don't know how your journey was. Maybe you can share with us. Um,
Yeah. So I know for myself, I don't know if you've heard my story, but if you've not heard my story, Julia, and for all of those who are currently on this stream, I'm going to tell you all today. So I've always loved Microsoft, and I loved C Sharp, which was Microsoft's programming language, and I wanted to build solutions with C Sharp. I've tried as much as possible to go through online platforms to learn more about this. And then, sometime in 2019, I wanted to become an advocate of Microsoft technology. Because of the love I had for Microsoft, being working with Windows devices, from the first computer I had, I wanted to do more with Microsoft. And so I searched the Microsoft Ambassadors program in universities. And then I learned about the Microsoft Student Partners program as it was back then known, and I decided to join. Well, I can still remember vividly when a lot of people were like, "Oh no, don't join the Microsoft Student Partners program. It's not fun. It's not cool. Do something else in your life." I was like, "Oh no, I like things that are not fun." But I decided to take the bold step, and I got into the program. Well, I was very, very shy, and I didn't do a whole lot. COVID came around and even made things worse. But in 2020, I didn't realize that COVID was actually an opportunity to reach more people and to help them learn about technology. I can still remember going on to host multiple events, virtual events, that I could even speak at over 100 of the sessions from 2020 down to 2022. So it was really, really great. The Microsoft Student Ambassadors Program, as it was later known in 2021, was a really, really great opportunity for me to upskill. By the way, for all of the student ambassadors who are currently on this stream, the Microsoft Student Ambassador Program, as you have seen right from the beginning of this series down to this point, has amazing opportunities for you. So be sure to jump on all of these opportunities. And then I learned about the role. Um, Getting the role was actually provided with the support of a mentor. So when you're a Microsoft Student Ambassador, you could also have cloud advocates like myself and Julia who become your mentors, and even those who are more experienced than we are, to help you in your career. And that exactly was what helped myself and Julia to get up to this point that we currently are. Well, anyways, that's more of my story. Here I am. Here I am working alongside Julia. And here we are wanting to empower student ambassadors to also go through the same process and become all amazing, like we are. So, Julia, you spoke about Azure and how as student ambassadors they have access to Azure credits. And
yep.
I can remember for a couple of your sessions, you have shown how students could actually build a resume for themselves and upload on Azure Static Web Apps. Would you like to talk a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, for sure. And I think before that, I'm really, really glad you didn't listen to your friends who asked you not to join the ambassador program, because we wouldn't actually be friends today. So I'm so glad you didn't listening to them. So to your question, yes, as students, and I know I've had this before, that students wonder, hey, that how can we access these school resources from Azure? And remember, we are not yet working, so we don't really have, like the money to pay for some of these resources. And I don't know if you all know that all students, as long as you're a student in a verified academic institution, you can actually claim up to 100 USD worth of Azure credits every year. Now, this is a benefit called Azure for Students, and I believe we'll share a link to that, where every year you can be claiming 100 USD just for you to play around with Azure resources, create projects, And just to add on top of that, as Jaflet has mentioned, where you can also launch a whole portfolio site or a resume site, you can actually do that without using any amount from the 100 USD that you get. So, what do I mean by this? We have resources that actually have a pretty generous free tier where instead of using your 100 USD just to deploy a website, you can reserve that for a more complex project, say an AI project that will definitely need a lot more credits, and then use a service that has a free tier just to deploy your sites. So I'm pretty sure that Jaflet on this call will have some time to kind of go through it. So I don't know if you want me to show our audience how you can actually have your own portfolio site on the cloud without even having to spend any amount of money on the same.
Sure, definitely. I would love to. I'm excited to. And I even love the fact that you spoke about students creating this for free. They don't have to spend their Azure for student subscriptions.
Yep.
So let me bring up your screen now. And please, over to you, Julia.
All right, so I hope this is visible. And before that, right, before we even get to how you can build this, I'd also want to share why you would consider building this. And remember how we were talking about our previous experience as student ambassadors. There's definitely a lot that we did, live sessions, skilling our peers in terms of the events that we'd organize, sometimes even just creating code samples and hosting that on GitHub. But the real win is when you can actually share these learnings with the world. So you might do a lot of cool stuff, but no one knows about it. You might have done 20 events in your school, really having a positive impact in your community, but you don't have any way to showcase or to demonstrate the work that you've done. So I think in terms of what we are aiming to achieve with today's session is to help you sort of see that need to build your online presence, especially in tech. You might want to consider investing some time to ensure that you have your work speaking on your behalf online. So definitely, if you have some cool and amazing work that you're doing, I would actually suggest that push that to the cloud. Let the world know exactly what you're doing and celebrate your wins. You never know, this can come in really, really handy. So for today, what we're going to do, and as you can see, I'm on GitHub. We are going to create a portfolio website where you can add the amazing, cool stuff that you've been doing, and you're going to deploy these in the next, I think, 15 to 20 minutes. I know Jeff Letter has given me like 20 minutes for this, so we'll definitely see how possible it is to start a full project and actually deploy it to the cloud. So with that, Jaflet, I don't know if our audience is aware of what we call a code space, or could we maybe just talk a little bit about what code spaces are?
Yeah, sure. So I'll definitely we can talk about it because I would also be talking about code spaces during my session. So you can talk about code spaces, and then when I head over to my session, I can just show them how cool it is. Or you can also show them, and then I also show them. We could have two demos on code spaces.
Yeah, sounds cool. Sounds cool. Yeah, so I think for everyone who's following along, you can actually do this. So if you go to github.com, you can access the education repository. And then under the education repository, we have the education account, we have this repo called codespaces project template JS. So what this repository actually does is that it allows you to launch a portfolio site. We'll be using JavaScript, we'll be using React, and we're actually going to do this with 0 installs. So it doesn't matter the machine you're currently on. We are going to actually run this on the cloud by using what we call a code space. So perhaps you're hearing the word code space for the first time. So a GitHub code space is basically just a fully functioning developer environment that is being provisioned to you on the cloud. So on your browser, you can power up a fully functioning developer account with, the IDE that you'd want to use. You can install the extensions you'd want to use, and you can literally do everything that you do on VS Code, but in this case, having this being provisioned on the cloud. So how is this useful? Sometimes you might actually want to configure dev environment in a different operating system as to what you have on your machine. And that's all possible by what we call code spaces. So for that, what I'm going to do is that I've already forked this project. So I already have this project in my own account. And if I could just show you, so I have it here and I've called it build your portfolio demo. So this is kind of the repo that I'm going to use. As you can see, it's just a fork of that initial repository that I've just shared with you. And I have 3 branches here. So I have the DevRel demo branch that we're going to be using for today's demo. And instead of cloning this and working on my local PC, instead, I'm going to click the green button. And instead of working with our HTTPS URL just to clone this project, I'm going to power up a code space. Now, this will immediately spin up a fully functioning developer environment. And as you can see, I already have one. So I already created one beforehand just to spare some time since we have a limited amount of time for this workshop. And what you can see on my screen at the moment, which I hope is visible, but let me just zoom in a bit more. As you can see here, this is an interface that would look exactly like what you have on your machine. So if you have VS Code installed, this is the exact interface that you would have. But as you can see, we are all working on the cloud. So this is running on my browser. And what I have here is a dev container that kind of holds the configuration for the container that we are currently using. So it's as simple as that. And you can see once I open up this code space, it's going to automatically install all the packages that I need for this project. Remember, I said that we'll be working with React. So I have a few packages that I would need to install, and that's already being executed. And then I've already started my project so that we see what do we have and how we're going to start building our portfolio site. So you can see that our project is running on localhost 1234. But what I'm going to do is that I actually want to open this on this same interface. I don't want to open an external port. So if I come under my ports, I will see that automatically once you open your code space and you start your project, code spaces actually configures and handles the port forwarding for you. So it immediately creates a port that I'm going to use, but instead of opening it in the browser, I'll go with the second option to just preview on my editor so that I have this one location with my code as well as the real-time updates that I can always view. Sorry, not sure what happened. Okay. Yep. So at this point, you can see that I'm going to reduce my terminal and I'm going to reduce this view. You'll see that I have my code on one side. And again, I have this template or this portfolio website that is already up and running. So I think it's been 5 minutes since we started, and we already have a site that we can easily customize and add our code. So let's already begin from there. So looking at our projects, I'm just going to go into my source folder. So if you've worked with React, then this is probably something very familiar for you. But if not, I think this is also a good opportunity to kind of learn as you build. I think that's one of my favorite ways of learning, where you get to learn as you build and not just stick up with all the theory work and then get to implement later. So the first thing that I'm going to do, I'm just going to check on our entry point, how is this app structured? And so once I open my app.js file, I'll see that, okay, so we are passing some site props. So I believe this is the information that is currently being displayed on our website. But hey, my name is not Alexandri, so I'm definitely going to update this with my details. And since I already have that ready, I'm just going to copy and paste my right details right here. So once I do that, I should immediately refresh and see the real-time updates on the site that we currently have. So you'll see that I now have my right name, my role. And if I could actually scroll down, let me try opening one of these links, see if they point to the correct pages. Let me see if that loads up my GitHub account. Yes, it does. So right here on the site props, we can actually define the values for, like your details and for your portfolio site. So that would be the first step. Let me see what else we would need to change. This is definitely not me. So this photo is someone that I do not know. So what I'm going to do is that I'm also going to get into my components, because I know that from how this page is being rendered, this project is being rendered, I have the home that actually now the home page, the home component that passes the site props that we just updated, but I want to actually change the image that is being displayed here. So I'll get into my components and look for this home component. I'm going to find it here and I'll find the image, but this is what I want to change. So I am going to just find an image that I can use. So let me just get one and I'm going to drop it into this image folder. So there, I have just added my image. So this is more like me. So let me just edit the name to make it one word, Julia Muiruri. And then in my home component, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to replace this and point to my image. So it's called Julia-Muiruri. And I don't know if you noticed what happened when I started typing. Since I have GitHub, I have Copilot installed. You can see that Copilot is already suggesting some code that I can accept. So it already detects that I've added a new file and it knows the name of the file. So as I try to change the image that I'm pointing to, Copilot is able to, in real time, recommend the code that I can use to execute that. So I'm just going to accept the proposal or the suggestion from Copilot. I'm going to refresh my simple browser. All right, so we'll see that we have an error here. So let's see if we can change that. All right, so let's try updating and ensure that we get the name right. I'm going to save that and I'm going to refresh. Yep, hopefully that fixed it. So before we had it in lowercase, so I think this is case sensitive. So you'd also need to verify the code suggestions that you would be getting from Copilot. So I think with that, my site is beginning to look a lot more like what I want it to be. But something else on my about section, I feel like this is all a lie. I haven't really done anything on UI UX. So again, I'll check into my about component. I am going to locate the description and I'm just going to update this with the description that I currently have on my GitHub account. So it's a description I've used for a very long time, but I just love what it says. So that's kind of it about me. Then for my skills, again, that's something that I'm going to change to reflect my current skill set. So remember, this is ideally the experience you'd be having just to customize this website and have it reflect the details that you want it to have. So I'm going to replace what I have there as a skill list. And yeah, I think this is beginning to look good. Yeah, we have this other detail that is not quite accurate. So I'm also going to replace that. So I'm going to replace what I have on the detail with some more true information. Okay, that's looking good. Now, the other thing, which will be the last thing we'll do, is on the portfolio section where you get to add like a list of projects and stuff that you've worked on. I can see that so far it has some 4 profiles, but I have not worked on either of these. I want to add my work here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to locate the portfolio component. Then let me minimize that to get some better working space. So on my portfolio component, I didn't get the file right. So the portfolio component, I can close in every other file. Yep. So for this portfolio component, I think I'm okay with how the page is outlined. So I'm okay with the style. The only thing that I'm going to change is the information that is currently being displayed. So again, let me minimize that to get some better working space. So this is the array that I'm going to update. So I'm going to simply replace what is currently here with a list of what I have worked on. So what I'm going to share today would be probably one of the blogs that I have shared in terms of how you can build like a Power Apps custom control using TypeScript. I've also worked on another blog that just does a gentle introduction to how you can start using some of the OpenAI models within Power Platform. And then I also contributed to this workshop that you can do to deploy a resume to the cloud. And then finally, I've done this short video that talks about why Codespaces is so awesome. And so these are the 4 resources that I want to share on my portfolio site. And I know that majority of you who are actually watching these today are doing better stuff. So definitely share that with the world. Let us know the work you're doing. And so with that, I'm just going to copy the code that has my details and simply replace what is currently here. So with that, you should see that my details will now be available on my portfolio site. And I'm going to just test whether these links work. So I'm going to open this in a new tab. And I think, yep, it loads the correct page. So that's looking good. I think so far in less than 20 minutes, we've had our portfolio site. But the last thing we're going to do is that we're going to actually deploy this on the cloud without having to spend any amount of money. So what I'm going to do first is that for the changes that I've just made, I am simply going to stage the changes. I'll say that I've added my details to the website. That should be descriptive enough. I will commit the changes and I'm definitely going to push them to my repository. So I think that's in order. So that kind of works. And what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to get out of my code space and I'm going to now access my repository. I'll do a quick refresh and I should see the commit that I've just pushed with the details that I currently added to my site. So the final step that I'm going to do is that I'm going to head over to Microsoft Azure and I'm going to create a new static web app. So the web app is the resource that we are going to use to simply deploy our application. You can see I already have it here, but if you don't have it on the landing page, you can click on create a resource and then type static web apps and you should be able to see it. And then I'm going to click on static web apps. I'll create a new one. As you can see, I have several that are running. I'll create a new one. And then on the subscriptions, you can see that I have the Azure for Students subscription, which again, all students are eligible for. So if you haven't already, I know Jafflet will be sharing or has already shared a link that you can use. I'll select a resource group to store my static web app. So a resource group is just like a folder that you specify I want to store certain resources in one folder because they're related to one project. If I have a different project, I can have a different resource group created for that, and so forth. So I'm going to give my static web app a name. I'll call it DevRel demo site. And then what I was saying in terms of us not using any amount of credits is that we have a pretty generous free offer that we can definitely use here. And if you can compare the plans that are being offered, you'll see that with the free plan, you're actually getting 100 GB per subscription. So it's fairly generous and it's enough for this type of project. I'll host this in West Europe. And then I already have my GitHub account connected to Azure. So it already picked my username. If you haven't used this before, you'll get a prompt to sign into GitHub, which you will authorize static web apps to access your GitHub account. And then I'm going to select my organization. And what you'll see happen here is that it's going to load all the repositories that I have in my own account. So for today, we used a repo called build your portfolio demo. And then I'm going to specify the branch that I want to be deployed. So in this case, the branch that I want to be deployed is DevRel demo, because that's what we have just updated. In terms of the build presets, remember this was a React project, so I'm going to select React. My project is in the root directory, so I don't have to change anything there. But the output location of my project will be in a folder called dist. So with that, I'm going to review and create my static web app, and that's all you actually need to do. You don't need to change anything else. You'll review and create your resource, and you'll see some updates in terms of the steps. So it's going to be initialized, it's going to be created, and then it's going to trigger deployment. So it's going to pick the code that I have on GitHub and simply deploy it to the resource that we just created. So Jaflet, as we wait for this to deploy, I don't know if we have any questions on the chat that we can address.
Yeah, sure. This was really, really cool. Thank you very much, Julia. So I have pasted the link to activate your Azure for Students subscription just in case you haven't. So please head over and get that activated. Okay, I think it has worked now.
Yep. So what has happened is that the resource has already been created. So we have our static web app live. But if you go back to your GitHub, you'll find this, I think it's brown in color, you'll find this dot. And what this actually represents is that we have a GitHub action that has been triggered. So while we were on Azure and we created a static web app and then we linked our GitHub account, our repository to the static web app, it was able to configure a workflow that will actually trigger a deployment. So every time we push changes to that branch, to that repository, it's going to trigger a deployment and update the live site without your manual intervention. So at this point, you don't ever have to go back to Azure. What you've just done is enough. You'll now keep focusing on writing your code, improving your code. And once you're done, push the code to GitHub, and this workflow will simply handle everything. So we can see that our workflow actually failed. So what we can do is that we can click on the workflow file, and then we can just go in there and start checking what actually failed, and then see if it's something we can address. So yeah, we see we have an error where we needed to update one of the packages. So I know, Jaflet, you have a demo, but what I can do is that I can come to our file. Let me get to my project. I will stop this. And then I'm going to simply update that. So just based on what we've seen, we need to update this. Yep, so let's do that. And then, all right, so give it a quick second. All right, so it has updated our package. So with that, I'm going to now commit these changes. So we can check on the working tree, and we'll see that we've just updated new slide. So I'm going to just say that I updated the package. So let's see if our live debugging will work. So let's state our changes. Let's commit that. Let's push to GitHub. And then, okay, let me confirm we're in the right branch. Oh, so we first need to pull. I remember we deployed our project. So we're going to first discard. Let's just get rid of the changes we've done. So undo the previous commit. So let's first pull, because remember we updated our project, so it added a workflow file. So we need to first pull that, and then let's just confirm by typing git status. All right. So we're up to date, and then let's just recommit. So Jaflet, I know I'm eating into your time, so we'll just have this deployment
This
since
is
we
actually
already.
cool. This is actually
Yeah.
very cool, so I'll give you my time, no problem.
All right, all right. So let's go on with the live debugging. Let's see if this is going to work. So what we've done is that we have just updated. We needed to update a package. So that's what we've done, and then we've pushed our code. So what I'm going to do is that let me get out of the GitHub actions. I'll go back to my code, and you'll see that um, we didn't have to go back to Azure. But if I switch to my branch, I shall see that the workflow has already been triggered. So you don't have to take any other additional step to deploy. You just need to keep pushing your code. So let's go back into our Actions tab. You can see that it has picked our latest change that we've just done. So we're going to give it a quick second, see if this builds and deploys successfully. If not, I guess we'll just keep with the live debugging, see if it's gonna work. But in the meantime, Jafle, do we have any questions so far?
Yeah, sure. So we have one question from Victor. Victor is asking, so let me just. So Victor is asking, he said, I was lucky enough to learn about Azure Credit early, but not smart enough to turn off a virtual machine and provision out of excitement. Cool, definitely way build solutions with Azure Credit, but it ended up using all my credits. So sorry about that, Victor.
Yeah.
So can Victor get more credits?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm so sorry, Victor, that happened. But yeah, I think it's also good that you shared that experience with us because absolutely, if you create resources and you're no longer using them, ensure you either stop the resources or you delete if you don't need them anymore, just to avoid over consuming the credits that you have. Or alternatively, you can set limits. So you can always configure on Azure for you to have some limits. And in case you want to exceed the boundary that you set, you'll get a notification and you can come and just check and just ensure that you update everything accordingly. But with that sense, I think, Victor, you are using Azure for Students. So if you are using Azure for Students, unfortunately, you'll have to wait for a whole year, since the time that you activated, you would need to wait for 1 year for you to get um, an additional benefit of the 100 USD. But I think another way around it, after I don't know if you had this when you were back in school as a student, was that I used to attend some events where the speakers would actually provide some verification codes. So that would then give you some credits that you can always utilize as you wait for your period to lapse. So I don't know, Jaflet, if you have like any other tips you can share, but that always worked for me back then.
Yeah, don't worry, Julia. You covered all of the tips I wanted to share with Victor. So, Victor, you can try out these different things that
Yep.
Julia has mentioned. So, I can see your workflow has updated.
Yep, so our workflow is done. So what we're going to do, let's just go back to our Azure resource and you'll see that there's this URL that was provided. So if I click on this URL, I should be able to find the site that I created. So this is the site that we worked on. In less than 20 minutes, we used up a template, we updated our details, and then we actually deployed it to the cloud. So this is a URL that everyone has access to. What I had on preview in my code space, you can't actually share this. So if you were to open this port and try and share this, the live site that we were trying to work on in the code space, this is normally not publicly accessible. You can see it's set to a visibility of private. So you can only see this if you're working on your project within that code space. But after you deploy it, you can use whatever provider. So in this case, we used Azure. You can definitely now have it publicly available, share with the world. Let's see if it works. Yeah, you can see my about details. You can see the portfolio details and some contact details here in case you want to keep in touch. So I think these are some of the projects that you can always do. And as you're actually working on such a project, you'll find that you're sharing what you're learning with the world. So if at any given point you need to validate that you have certain skills, then this is definitely a good way for you to share that, hey, I created this portfolio website. It has some of the work that I've worked on. So go in there, check out some of the blogs I've written, check out some of the videos I've created. And with that, even if you're speaking to a potential employer, they would see the amount of work that you've given it. And you never know, this might actually be what you need to unlock that next employment opportunity. But yeah, I think that's the process. What you do is just access the templates, add your details, deploy to Azure, and you don't even need to worry about setting up the workflow. This is going to be configured for you automatically. If it fails, again, I'm happy that happened, but you also get to see how do you go about debugging. Good thing is that you can easily follow along the steps. So you can see in this case the last workflow, all the jobs executed successfully. But if any were to fail, you would just come in here, and it's a really, really good debugging tool. So I think with that, Jaflet, I can pass it back to you, see if we can add something else or maybe do something slightly different.
Yeah, so this was really, really cool. Thank you very much, Julia, for showing us how to utilize our Azure for Students credits for those who have their Azure for Students credits. And for those who don't have, they can head over to the comment section, click on the link, and create their Azure for Students and get access to build solutions like this. But remember, don't run very huge solutions. And like Julia said, don't make sure you turn off your resources when you are done so you don't exhaust the Azure credits before you get to utilize them. Now,
Yeah.
Julia has spoken about one part, and I want to speak about another part. So, a lot of times we work on projects, and how one key question becomes, how do we showcase our project? A prospective employee comes and says, hey, what are the things you have worked on? I'd love to see them. Where do we store these different things we have worked on? Just for your information, you can do these using GitHub. So Julia has shown us how to go over GitHub. And if you haven't already, please, please, please be sure to create your GitHub account and utilize it. The GitHub account allows you to store all of your projects there. I'm going to quickly share my screen and show you a sample project that, interestingly, I worked on while I was a Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador, and that project I worked on helped me to get my current role. So this is my screen, and I am going to head over to that specific project. I'm going to stick the link to that project in the comment section so that you can head over and also follow along with it. So I already have the link to that project, aka.ms/devrel6 project. And when I'm going to click it, it's going to automatically open up that project that has been created on GitHub. This is my GitHub profile. And when anybody comes to my GitHub profile, for example, they can see all of the things that I have worked on. And if you see from this specific GitHub repository, it has the entire solution I built explained. It goes on to show people, all organizations, how I went through the process to create the specific solution I created and the benefits of the solutions. Now you can see the different sections, how people can head over. At the end, notice that they could move from one section to another. So somebody comes here and they want to move to the next session, they can easily have access to it. But let me give you a little bit insight into the specific solution I worked on and how I got to showcase it here, right? So a lot of times in organizations, we realize that employers do not get to communicate with their employees. They probably just send surveys once in a while to get to find out how their employees are doing and anything they need to change. A lot of times employees have to move from the specific thread or application that they are on to another application. So let's say, for example, a survey that has been created using Microsoft Forms, they have to move to their browser to be able to access it. So how about we create something that people could utilize within Microsoft Teams or the specific tenant that they want to? First, they don't have to move out. Secondly, it's easy for them to get to take the survey. And then, thirdly, it's also important for them to be able to get reminders. So, for example, someone might forget to fill the survey. Probably Julia has been at that point. I have been at that point when I forget to fill the survey. That is very important. They get regular reminders about the survey utilizing Power Automate. If you notice here, for this next part, it's how adaptive cards utilizing Power Automate can help them to get reminders of this specific survey that they have to fill. And then we also utilize Power Virtual Agents for a lot of people who want to something interactive, something they can chat with. They don't just want to fill a random form. They can get access to the Power Virtual Agent bots that they can use. This is Microsoft's Power Platform. And then the final piece I'd like to show you is how you can then move on to visualize this entire solution um, with Power BI, Microsoft Power BI, if you're not aware of it. And like I mentioned earlier, at the last end of each link, end of each part, it tells you where next to go to continue learning. Okay, so this is it. I've spoken a bit about our template. Let me head over to show you how you can edit this. This time, I'm going to show you how to do so with GitHub Desktop. So I'll open up my GitHub desktop and then I would switch my screen so you can see my GitHub desktop screen. From GitHub desktop, I can then share this and visualize it, and then see all of the things that has been done from Visual Studio Code. So this is currently my GitHub desktop that should be up on the screen now. And if you can see, I already have that project here on my GitHub desktop account. And so I'm just going to head over and open it up. So when I open it up, you can see the entire project. I would open this entire project on Visual Studio Code, which is the platform myself and Julia are using to edit our code. So when you head over to, here we are, Visual Studio Code, what is going to happen? So I'm just going to make this bold for you all. Is you're going to see the entire repository, right? So Julia spoke about images. You can see all the images that were used for the entire solution. Here you can find the different sections we broke down this entire project into. So first off, we headed over to the we started off first with the Power Apps application, where they can view all of the responses, right? And that's the first thing here. I'm going to see all of the code that has been created following the specific format that is on our GitHub repository. You notice how it has been created, how it has been designed, right? Have the overview piece, you have details about the overview. You have building our app from SharePoint, the first section, and it goes over to explain every single thing to you. So all you need to do if you need to work on your project is come over here, utilize this template, and then head over to edit it. Like myself and Julia have shown you, we want it to be really, really easy for you to do all of these things. So that's why we're providing templates for you all. So you just need to come over here, edit them, and get everything set up. Because of time, I'm going to pause here. And the last thing I would love to show you is just how to push this. So when you go over to GitHub for desktop, I know Julia showed you how it works for GitHub code spaces, but I am going to show you how it works actually for. So I'm going to share my screen again, and I'm going to show you how this works for your GitHub for desktop account. Once you have done that, you would see all of the issues here. So I'm just going to make changes to one of these. Let's see, I do something here, and I'm going to save it. And the moment I save it, you will notice that there has been a change that has been implemented here. You can see the change. I am going to commit. The moment I commit, I would go over to push it. So moving it from this coding editor back to the repository that has been created. And then when you head over to the GitHub repository that has been created, just as Julia showed you, you can then head over to merge it and go on to showcase it to any other person or anybody that wants to see it, that wants to see the cool stuffs that you have actually worked on. So this is pretty much it. Aside showcasing your solutions, aside from showcasing your solutions in the Azure Static Web Apps, you can also showcase your solutions here using GitHub. Very, very important links, very, very important templates that I would think would be beneficial to you. Interestingly, it was beneficial to myself and Julia, and we trust and know that it would also be beneficial to you all. For the question from Divya in the chat, we can we'll be sharing a link to this template that Julia used for her tutorial for her demo right now. So please, you can head over to access that link. And then for the link I also use for my demo, you can also find that from the comment section. Um, so I don't know if Julia probably has any final thoughts, anything we missed you'd love to mention.
Um, so I think thanks for sharing your demo as well. Pretty cool. So I think final words for me is we used a code space. So like any other resource or any other cloud compute resource, whenever you're done using your code space, please stop it. Because remember, as students, again, you get free 90 hours of code spaces every month. But again, you don't want to exceed the quota, just at the beginning of the month, for example. So as long as you're done with your code space, either stop it if you'll resume the project, or if you're done with it, just go ahead and delete it so that you can have enough remaining bit of the offer to use for other projects. But yeah, I think I'm hoping this was helpful, and I'm really looking forward to all of you implementing this. Remember, this was just one uh, short demo in terms of a portfolio website. You can actually choose to expand it, have the site do a lot more than that. So I would actually challenge everyone on the call to do that. But yeah, this was great, Jaflet. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, that's a very healthy challenge. Again, want to see more of your project on GitHub, include the links to your project on GitHub so people can head over to see the amazing things you are doing. For a lot of Microsoft Learn student ambassadors and for you all students and rising developers, there are lots of beautiful solutions that you build. Let's get people to see the great stuff that you all do. So I want to say thank you very much to everybody for being part of Microsoft Reactor. This was another Microsoft Reactor session, and I want to learn how this session has been for you, what sessions you would love us to have. So please head over to the link that is currently being displayed in the screen and will be added to the comment section. Use the event code 19263 and tell us how this session has been of impact to you, or if there are other sessions that you would love us to do in future or things you would love us to talk about. The last session in this series would be in 2 weeks, And we want to talk about what next for Microsoft and student ambassadors and for students. So, walked you through the entire program, walked you through how you can build amazing solutions, the necessary skills that you need. So, how do you go on to utilize these skills in the real world? And we'll have amazing guests like Julia and myself who would come to tell us about this. Don't forget to always utilize these Microsoft Reactor links to learn more about other amazing events that are being held on Microsoft. Events on Microsoft Reactor are free, so please be sure to use these things so you don't miss out on the next amazing Microsoft Reactor session that we'll be having with you all. Great. So just before we go, I can see a question from Victor. So I guess that question is for you. Where do you get the Microsoft events for free credits? I don't know if you meant Microsoft Azure for free credits, but the link pasted in earlier, this is the link to access the Azure for Students subscription and for you to register and get access to it. But I hope that answers your question, Victor. Um, so from my end, thank you very much, everybody. Enjoy the remaining part of your day. Don't forget to utilize all of the resources we've shared. I want to see all of the amazing things that you get to do. Goodbye, Julia. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.